In the last video, lesson 2, we established what the costs of an employee could be. So now we're going to take a look at how we figure out the time that they're available and how that has an impact on the cost. So what we've done so far is consider what are the financial costs of having an employee on. The standard employment at 40 hours a week for 52 weeks of the year is 2,080 hours. So what that means is you're going to pay an employee for 2,080 hours without overtime. So if you're going to pay them for the 2,080 hours, are you actually going to get 2,080 hours of productive time? Well, you're not. So what do we find here? We find that we've got annual leave, which is statutory 4 weeks per year. And on top of the annual leave, we've also got public holidays, and that's typically 11 or more days per year. And then on top of that, we've got sick days, which sick day entitlement's gone up this year to 10 days per year. And then on top of that, we've got paternity or maternity leave. Now this one gets a wee bit complicated because if it's a female staff member and they take maternity leave, you are deemed to hold that position open for them to decide to come back to work for up to a year, which means you might have to employ a temporary person. And although the government's covering the cost of maternity leave, they aren't covering the extra cost of having someone on a short-term contract. And that can increase the per hour cost of productivity for you for up to a full year. Another one you have to consider is bereavement leave. Will an auntie or a father or a parent or a child die this year? Another group you have to consider is things like jury service or say apprenticeship training, where you send them away for weeks on end and they're not available but you're still paying them wages. Also there's voluntary service and a few other types of leave. All up there's 19 Acts of Parliament that impose costs on you when it comes to employees. Now you'll remember earlier on that I mentioned something called bad maths, and we need to consider that when looking at these costs, because this right hand box here with the time is really about losses. It's something that I call time tax, because what's happening here is this is time taken off you by the government. It's effectively where you're paying your staff to not be at work. And the cost of this really comes down to loss revenue, because you haven't got the staff to make money off while they're away on time tax. So how do we account for that using good maths? So we need to take the annualised cost and divide it by the total available hours for the upcoming period. Be it a year, be it quarterly, be it monthly, be it weekly, or be it daily, we need to divide it down. And it's going to vary because at Christmas they could be only available for 50% of a month due to public holidays. Other times of the year they might be available for all of the hours that would be paid for. To help you understand this in a more visual manner, I'm going to go show you something a wee bit different. So what we see here is a dashboard that's calculated those figures, and I'm just going to focus on here. So you can see the base hourly rates here of all these individuals, and with the time deducted, in other words by dividing on the true available hours, you can see the different rates applied here. So we've got our superannuation, our ACC, our holidays, etc., etc. And that's calculated per individual by their available hours. And it brings us up here to what I call the painful hourly rate. So this person's on $24.90, but the minimum we're going to be paying for them is $31.50. Right down to this guy Alan here, who's 55, is actually working out to $72.44. Now there's no linear percentage because it all comes down to availability. Do they have accrued leave? What leave's coming up and what time of year is it? But there's another important part we have to consider, and we need to consider the cost of the overheads, the cost of running the business, because we only get those costs back by dividing it across the productive hours of the staff here. So to illustrate that, I'll show you it in the next video. If you want to know more, here are all the buttons and resources that you need. Just use these links to go places. Don't forget to share this video with friends who you think might need this video.